Okay, so let's unpack this. Today, we're diving straight into the NBA slate for Thursday, April 3rd, 2025. We've got a breakdown here from a sports betting outlet looking at 6 specific games happening today.
Right.
Our goal is pretty simple. Just give you the key predictions and the reasoning behind them, a quick but hopefully insightful look at how the betting odds are shaping up for these matchups.
That's right. We're basically dissecting the consensus picks for these games, plus the core analytical points they're using to justify those picks. The sources focus on the betting angles, so they're looking closely at things like point spreads.
Right, margin to victory stuff.
Yeah, exactly. That margin a team is either favored by or expected to stay within, and also the over-under on total points.
Got it. Okay, so first up we have the Orlando Magic heading to face the Wizards in Washington. The spread is, pretty hefty. Magic -of 15.5, and the total points projection is 212.5. What's the thinking on this one?
Well, the overwhelming expectation, the consensus, is that the Magic will cover that pretty significant spread. A major factor being highlighted is the Wizards' struggles playing at home.
Yeah.
They've only managed to win 8 out of their 38 home games this season.
Yeah.
That's a real vulnerability.
That's a telling stat. Is it just that they're losing, or are they losing by, big margins at home?
The analysis suggests it's often the latter. It seems their defensive efficiency tends to dip noticeably when they're playing in front of their own fans, which makes them susceptible to teams with strong offensive players. And speaking of strong offensive players, Orlando's Paolo Banchero is expected to have a productive night against this Wizards team.
No, okay. So it's kind of a combo.
Yeah.
Wizards home court struggles plus Banchero potentially exploiting a good matchup.
Exactly. And if you look at Orlando more broadly, their defensive capabilities are also a really key part of their success. They're a team that can genuinely stifle opponents. And going up against a team that already struggles to score efficiently at home, it just sets up a scenario where that 15.5-point spread feels more attainable for the Magic.
Makes sense. All right, let's move on to another Eastern Conference battle. The Milwaukee Bucks traveling to Philly to take on the 76ers. Here the Bucks are favored by 11.5 points on the road. Total set at 228.5. What's the outlook?
The consensus heavily favors the Bucks, covering that 11.5. The primary reason cited is the current state of the Philadelphia roster. They're reportedly dealing with several key players being sidelined due to injury.
Oof, yeah, that always throws a wrench in things. And facing a team like the Bucks, who are, looking like serious contenders, missing key pieces can be absolutely devastating.
Absolutely. And adding to that, the analysis points to Giannis Antetokounmpo being in particularly dominant form right now.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So when you have a player performing at that level going against a team that's already weakened, the chances of a significant point differential, they certainly increase. It raises the question, right? Even with their role players stepping up, can the Sixers really contain Giannis and the Bucks enough to stay within that margin? The betting consensus seems to suggest, it's unlikely.
Fair point. Okay, moving over to the Western Conference. We've got the Minnesota Timberwolves heading to Brooklyn to face the Nets. Spread is Wolves -13.5, total 215.5. What's the feeling about this matchup?
The expectation is that the Timberwolves will cover that 13.5 points. And interestingly, we see a similar dynamic to that Magic Wizards game regarding home performance. The Brooklyn Nets haven't fared well at home either. Only 11 wins in their 36 games in Brooklyn.
So another team struggling on their own court. And for the Timberwolves, they're fighting hard in that tough Western Conference playoff picture, right? So every win is crucial for them.
That playoff push definitely adds an extra layer of, intensity and focus. The analysis specifically mentions Anthony Edwards' leadership as a real driving force for Minnesota. And it also highlights a potential mismatch in the interior, suggesting Brooklyn might struggle to defend the Timberwolves' big men. That combo, strong leadership, playoff motivation, potential positional advantage could certainly lead to a comfortable win for Minnesota.
All right. Let's shift gears a bit to a game where the underdog is actually getting some attention. Memphis Grizzlies on the road against the Miami Heat. Spread is Grizzlies plus 5.5. Total 225.5. What's the thinking here?
Okay, so the consensus pick is actually for the Grizzlies to cover that plus 5.5 spread as the underdogs. A significant factor seems to be the noticeable positive impact of Ja Morant's return to the Memphis lineup.
Ja's back.
Yeah, his presence seems to have injected real energy and dynamism into the team.
He's a game changer, no doubt. Even on the road against a seasoned Miami team, his influence is clearly being factored into these predictions. Now, Miami has Tyler Herro, who's mentioned as someone who could swing things. How does his presence affect this analysis?
Well, Haru's offensive capabilities are definitely recognized. He's a potential factor that could influence the final score, for sure. However, the overall feeling, the consensus, is that the momentum and impact of Morant's return for Memphis kind of outweighs the uncertainty around Harrow's performance in this specific game. The idea seems to be that even if Harrow has a good night, Morant's influence will be enough to keep the Grizzlies within that 5.5-point margin.
Yeah.
Maybe even win outright.
Okay. Let's move to the second to last game. Portland Trailblazers visiting the Toronto Raptors. Spread has the Blazers as slight 4.5-point favorites, total 224.5. This one's flagged as potentially misleading, though. What's the story here?
Yeah, this one's interesting because despite their overall struggles this season, the Raptors have actually maintained a respectable level of play when they're at home.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's a key distinction compared to some of the other home teams we've looked at, like Washington or Brooklyn.
So their home record is kind of an outlier compared to their overall performance. And the analysis suggests the Blazers aren't necessarily a strong road team. Is that it?
That's basically the implication, yeah. They're not viewed as particularly consistent or dominant, which makes them being road favorites against a team with a decent home record feel a bit questionable in the eyes of the analysts.
Right.
There's also a mention of Scotty Barnes' potential to really dictate the game for Toronto. So given their home comfort and Barnes' ability to impact both ends, the consensus is leaning towards the Raptors covering as home underdogs.
The trap line potential.
Exactly. The trap line suggestion indicates the betting market might be undervaluing the Raptors in this spot.
Always good to be aware of those potential misreads. Okay, finally, the headliner of the night. Golden State Warriors in L.A. to face the Lakers. It's a tight spread. Lakers plus 1.5, so home underdogs. And the total is set at 229.5. What's the anticipation for this West Coast showdown?
Yeah. This is the marquee matchup, no doubt. Curry versus LeBron in L.A. Despite the Warriors having a slightly better record overall, the consensus is actually on the Lakers covering that plus 1.5 spread. And, potentially even securing a win on their home court.
So the home court advantage and, the star power of the Lakers are swaying the predictions here, even as slight underdogs. What are some specific reasons cited for favoring L.A. in this one?
Well, several factors are being considered. Anthony Davis has apparently been playing at an exceptionally high level recently, and he's seen as a crucial player who could significantly impact this matchup. Additionally, there's a mention of a potential revenge narrative for the Lakers, suggesting they might be extra motivated for this game, maybe due to a previous loss or something.
Interesting angle.
Yeah, and just the fact that they're slight home underdogs in such a high-profile contest seems to be a key element driving the betting interest towards the Lakers.
All right, well, we've covered all 6 games. Let's do a quick-fire rundown of those consensus picks again, just to lock them in.
Absolutely. So for Thursday, April 3rd, 2025, the consensus picks are Magic and negative 15.5 against the Wizards.
On it.
Bucks a negative 11.5 against the 76ers. Timberwolves negative 13.5 against the Nets.
Yep.
Grizzlies plus 5.5 against the Heat.
The underdog pick.
Raptors plus 4.5 against the Blazers.
The potential trap game.
And Lakers plus 1.5 against the Warriors.
The marquee matchup. There you have it, the betting landscape for tonight's NBA action in, kind of a nutshell. And as always, the source reminds everyone to tail responsibly and shop your lines. Solid advice no matter how you're approaching these games.
Definitely. Always wise to be mindful of your approach. And look for the most favorable odds you can find.
So thinking about these expert lanes, it really does highlight the complexity, doesn't it? Trying to predict these NBA outcomes. What other elements do you think someone following these games might consider before making their own decisions? And how much weight should be given to things like a team's recent momentum versus their overall season performance, or even that psychological impact of a rivalry game like Warriors-Lakers? There's lots to unpack beyond just the numbers on the spread.
That's a great point. While these consensus picks give us a snapshot based on certain key factors, a deeper dive would definitely involve considering those very nuances. Things like a team's recent performance trends. Are they hot or cold? How do they match up historically against this specific opponent? Right. The impact of coaching adjustments, maybe even less tangible stuff like team morale or specific player rivalries, like you mentioned. Every single game really has its own unique context that goes beyond just the spread and the obvious statistical advantages.